This is our podcast, where we belly flop into the bouncy house of mystery, surrounded by conspiracies and unexplained phenomena, with theories so bizarre, they may actually make you say,
"Are they thinking with their butt?" Hey everybody, I'm Katie.
and I'm Chris.
And this is Stop Thinking with Your Butt. Yay!
Yeah!
Yay! Thanks for coming back, everybody.
Let's do it. Let's have a great day. What are we talking about today?
Oh, before we get started.
Okay.
No. After. I'll tell after. Okay. Today.
Suspense.
Today we're talking about unexplained cattle. Ooh, I wish. Unexplained cattle mutilation.
Oh, I thought they're all explained.
No. And I'm going to tell you. I will tell you.
So is a farmer who had a grudge with the other farmer.
That's a theory. And that's up there on my list of theories. But let me get into it. Okay, so my sources are History, Oregon Live, Oregon Public Bulletin, Northwest Public Bulletin, New York Times, Blue Mountain Eagle, Daily Yonder, FBI Records, and more.
And imagination.
And my feelings. Okay. In every industry, I couldn't think of, so you can help me out. Tell me if you think I'm wrong in this, but in any industry, you have to account for profit loss. There's always going to be damaged goods, waste.
Yeah, for
something.
the most part,
I couldn't think of anything. So like
your company, you gotta
the medical field. It's like if everything's sterile, so if they open it and they don't use it, trash.
Now, what I would say though is collectively, yes, they do profit loss. However, at the granular level, some companies don't take good inventory. And
True.
They lose a lot. And so therefore they don't really know what they're losing. A lot of that like 5% low hanging fruit type of thing.
Yeah.
It's either consumables or it's other things that they don't have a good system.
Yeah. Well, see, like in retail, they have to account for loss. They account for theft and damage goods. So it's like it's all taken account for. So even in like the agriculture industry, like farmers, they have to account that a certain percentage of their crops are going to get lost.
Yeah.
So droughts, rodents, if they plant 100%, they're only going to yield 80.
Yeah, and I would
something like that.
I'm assuming like if you're talking about like cattle or whichever,
the same.
And that's a little bit different than what I'm talking about, like consumables and small end stuff. That's like your product,
right?
So,
right.
You should have
so in the cattle industry,
everything's tagged and everything.
Well, in the cattle industry, technically, I mean, it's beef.
Yeah.
So it's their product, it's their industry. That's what they make money off of.
You should have better records of that. Yes.
Right. So, well, it's pretty, actually, the ranchers that I was researching all like took exceptionally good care and count of their animals. So I was really impressed because I kind of have this like enslaved, poorly taken care of system in my mind. And that was actually not. It was almost the opposite. So
yeah, I would have thought the opposite just because.
Well, they have to. Yeah. So it's like they have to care and tend for their product because it needs to yield the most optimum results. So the way to do that in the cattle industry is to have healthy, thriving stock. Mm-hmm. Okay. So agriculturists have to account for losing a percent of their crops to elements, disease, and unfortunately, the ranching community has to run similarly. So ranchers have to take into account that they will lose approximately 6 to 7% of their overall cattle. And the 6 to 7% typically die within the weaning period or before the weaning period. So it's within the first 10 months.
Do you know if that's in comparison to like the wildlife or zoos or whichever? Is that kind of common in terms of that percentage, you think? Or is that a higher or a lower percent?
I think so, because the top 5 reasons that I'm going to discuss are totally unpreventable.
Yeah.
Like digestive problems is the number 5 reason. And I literally watched an episode of The Incredible Dr. Pol, that vet, and he was called to a farm because a newborn calf was exhibiting like weird, whatever. It didn't have a rectum.
Ugh.
Everything else was there. It had no connection from the anus to the internal organs. So it was like...
I'm glad you went with that example. That's making me...
But when I talk about digestive problems, that's what I mean. Like sometimes, or like no stomach.
Yeah.
No, like, so it's things like that.
Yeah, that's what I would assume, right?
Yeah.
It's not like every animal is
And so
healthy.
those, it's like, yeah, so those are like unpreventable. You can't foresee that that's going to happen.
Yep.
Then next, so number 4 on the list is lameness or injury. And that could be considered unpreventable too. Like if you have cows out in the field and one of them steps in a prairie hole and breaks its leg, you can do your best to fix it, but it's not always, especially in the case of horses. I feel like we're getting better now with like braces and supports.
Well, Betty,
but
you just
exactly.
You just got to take it to the front of the line.
Yeah, exactly. It's so sad. Like we're getting better, but in certain industries, you can't really afford to take the time to mend the wound.
Yeah, I get it.
So, all right. So then on the number 3 is weather-related causes. So that would be like animals that succumb to hypothermia or heat exhaustion. So hypothermia is usually in the younger calves. Mm-hmm. So the number 2 cause of death amongst ranchers and their livestock
Aliens.
is... You wish. We'll get there. You be patient. So the number 2 reason is calving-related problems.
Birthing, right?
Yeah, birthing. So, which again, I feel like is unpreventable.
Yeah,
you know. And when there's instances like this, whether it's digestive problems or lameness or, you know, weather related, it's usually isolated for it's like 1 or 2 animals it happens to. Very rarely it's more than that. Even when there's predators.
Well, it's also like flipping a dice, right? Or a coin. Even though there's a 50% chance of heads, you can get 10 heads in a row.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's where. So even though there's a low percentage, it's just because there's a lot of occurrences, doesn't necessarily mean the percentages increase. It's just so happens that it's happening.
Right. So, but like even when it comes to terms of predators, so it's like ranchers have to take into account that they will lose some livestock to predators. It happens. But again, it's like if a pack is going to attack your herd, they will target one and take out one. Sometimes 2, depending on the size of the pack, but very rarely. In instances where there's 5 or 6 deaths.
I would almost use the lame calves or animals as bait. And
no, because then they're going to keep coming back then.
Oh, would they?
Yeah, easy targets. They're going to keep coming back.
Oh, wow. It's like, stay away. Hang out over here.
Guys, this guy left a burger on the doorstep. He's been doing it every night for 5 months.
It all depends on how many animals you have that go lame.
They're gonna keep bringing more. They're gonna be like, hey, pack number 2, check this guy out.
No, then they'll rely on that fed and they'll lose their ability to hunt on their own. And then when you stop it, you stop it, they're done. You win. Long game.
Long game, the long con. You're going to use hundreds of years of
based off the park signs, it's like
classical conditioning.
A month, 21 days.
All right. So this is where when like 5 or 6 die within a short time frame, that's when it's a little bit more unusual. Which brings us to the number 1 cause of death, which is unknown causes.
Is it unknown because it's actually like phenomenon, or is it because they're like, man, whatever?
Phenomena.
Okay. The rancher's lazy. Lazy. Unknown. Don't want to investigate it.
Meh. Could care less. No, it's very sad.
I didn't realize that was the number 1 is unknown.
The number 1 cause of livestock death is unknown. For centuries, there have been reports of unusual cattle death. The earliest report that I found was from 1606. But in modern times, as recent as this year, March 2022. So the remains of some cattle have been stunning ranchers who have found them. The animals' udders, anuses, sex organs, and tongues had routinely been removed, seemingly with sharp, clean instruments.
I heard they're the delicacy of the wild.
Well, okay, we'll get there. Stop it. Oh, God. The udders appeared to have been removed with precision, straight, even cuts, as if made by a sharp object. The reproductive system had been cut out cleanly as well and without disturbing any other organs. In all cases, the animals had been found seemingly drained of all blood. No tracks of footprints have been found in the immediate vicinity, nor were any other usual opportunistic scavengers present.
Were there 2 puncture holes by the neck?
No, it's not vampires. Darn it.
Hey, I'm not making suggestions here. I'm just looking at the facts.
Yeah. And the majority...
We're missing anuses here.
You said you went to vampires?
No, you said there's drained blood, too.
What does missing anuses have to do with?
I'm just saying.
Let's move on.
You gotta lift all stones.
Also, the majority of the cattle that have been turning up mysteriously mutilated have all been between the ages of 3 and 5.
Okay.
And
is that birthing age for cattle? I'm wondering.
I'm not quite sure. I'll get to it in a little bit. But one rancher says that if their cattle had lived a little bit longer, they would have been worth $7,000 a head, and they would have been the sire to at least 100 other calves in their lifetime. So they end up losing, when one cow dies, they end up losing hundreds of thousands of dollars in the long run. So it's really like, if you're one rancher pissed at another rancher, coming after their cattle is a low blow. So while these strange occurrences are predominantly cattle related, sheep and horses have also been affected. One of the most infamous cases is the case of a unexplained animal mutilation involving Snippy, a horse. Sometimes Snippy, yeah, the little horse named Snippy. It's been sometimes.
Spoiler alert. I think he bites.
Probably Snippy. I would have named him Chompy, Chomper. But in other reports, sometimes he's mistaken as, so it's a male horse, but sometimes it's mistaken as Lady, which is, he was the sire of Lady. So they get confused in the reports, but I've confirmed it's Snippy. So the Snippy was found dead, partially skinned at a ranch in Alamosa, Colorado in September 1967. The animal's brain, lungs, heart, and thyroid were cleanly cut out. There was an absolute absence of tracks within a 100-foot radius of the carcass, and the horse's own tracks had even disappeared within that radius. Within the radius, several small holes were found seemingly punched into the ground, and 2 bushes were absolutely flattened.
I thought you were going to talk about the neck.
No. 2 punctured. No. You got so excited. I'm so sorry. So that's weird.
That is weird. And I don't know if is there a black market for like animal organs?
I don't know why there would be. You can get, I feel like they're easily accessible.
Yeah.
I feel like you should be able to go to any butcher or meat market and ask for that.
And you know, even if it was like a hoax or something like that, what a sick person.
Right?
To go out and do that.
Right. I'm like, I don't really see why there would be any reason to do that.
But if they did that, you would feel like they'll be amateur about it. And so therefore they would be
sloppy. It would be really clumsy. There'd be some evidence.
Yeah.
Okay, let me keep going because it gets more intriguing. Moving into the 70s, there were thousands of cattle mutilations in the Midwest. Even though unusual livestock deaths had been occurring for centuries, it was now being more publicized because of the current economic conditions of the industry. So during this time, the government had been sending grain out of the country to help food insecure nations, which is great, except that it impacted the homeland. So the domestic price of cattle feed had increased. Nixon had put a freeze on the price of beef to prevent inflation. So it was costing ranchers more to feed their cattle, and they were yielding the same financial return in the end. So overall, they were losing money.
Yeah, that's what happens with inflation.
Yeah. So during this time, it was reported by the American National Cattlemen's Association that the industry had sustained an operating loss of $5 billion, plus a reduction in inventory value of $20 billion. So
actually, I guess it doesn't really affect the businesses as much because when inflation happens, guess what they do? Just raise the price.
Yeah, but they couldn't raise the price of beef because Nixon froze it. He put a freeze on the beef price.
Yeah. That's good.
Which is actually, it's good, but it hurt. It hurt.
I'm talking about in general.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. In general, yes. If
businesses are like, oh, inflation. Yeah, just raise the prices. So
we are experiencing that right now, and it is really crappy. I got gas today, by the way.
Well, it's the norm. It's $6 in California.
I know.
Long sigh.
I know.
Good.
So the ranching industry was getting a lot of attention because of all the struggles that they were experiencing at the time. Mm-hmm. But as a result of this, all those unusual cattle deaths that weren't getting any attention started to get attention. Mutilation, in which udders, eyes, ears, sex organs, and tongues seem to have been removed by the use of a sharp instrument, have been reported in Pennsylvania, Kansas, Minnesota, Nebraska, Texas, Oklahoma, Montana, Illinois, Wisconsin, and California.
So a lot of states.
Yeah, mostly the Midwest. On August 24th, 1974, in Lancaster County, Nebraska, the Lincoln Journal-Star reported strange, unidentified helicopters shining spotlights into fields that would soon become mutilation sites. One investigator claimed helicopter sightings had become a nightly occurrence, with both the FAA and the National Guard reportedly being unaware of any helicopter activity.
And it's not the local police trying to do their stakeouts or anything.
Nope. After ranchers began forming night vigils, the National Guard warned its helicopter pilots to fly at a higher than normal altitude to avoid fire from jittery farmers.
That's interesting.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
It's happening enough that people are shooting at helicopters at night.
Well, I was originally thinking maybe it's like an insurance scam, right? Like, I don't know if hey, it cost me X amount to keep this cattle for 2 years before I can slaughter it, kill it, sell it, or whichever.
But would you then put the effort into guarding your cattle at night and shooting at helicopters?
No. Unless because that's what people who care about their animals would do.
I feel like insurance fraud.
But if I was doing insurance fraud, I would be like, I love my animals so much, I'm going to yell at the helicopters.
Oh, I feel like people who use insurance fraud, I feel like they're really lazy.
I know, but if you're trying to show that you weren't having insurance fraud, I would be the person who is overly like, we got to go get the helicopters.
Okay, you'd go all in.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, throw off the scent.
By October 1974, it was reported that UFO conspiracy theorists considered cattle mutilations might be related to flying saucers. Now I got you, huh? Mulder.
Yeah.
Fox Mulder. 1975, between April and October, just 7 months, there were nearly 200 reported cases of cattle mutilation in Colorado alone. So 7 months, 200 and they're all the same. All genitals, eyes, tongue removed. The state senator at the time, Floyd Caskill, asked the FBI to get involved. And they would, but not just quite yet. On October 30th, 1975, the New York Times reporter published the article, 11 States Baffled by Mutilation of Cattle. Who has been killing cattle in Colorado and at least 10 other states the last few months? Well,
this is around the time of like some of the serial killers and so on too, right? I wonder if they move from humans to animals and if that satisfies them.
It's common for serial killers to start with animals, but I don't know at this extent for this length of time. You'll see. Since April in Colorado alone, 196 cows, as well as 1 buffalo, 1 horse, and 1 goat have been found dead with parts of their carcasses removed. In Lake Villa, Illinois, where 2 calves were found mutilated, the police suggested that the mutilations might be linked to the Oregon group said to be enlisting followers for a trip to outer space. So I looked that up. I'm like, who are they talking about? And the only cult that I could find during 1970s that wanted to go to outer space was Heaven's Gate and the Comet.
That was in the 70s. It was in the 90s.
Well, if they formed in the 70s, and they were located out of San Diego though. But I did find a report that in September 1975, so kind of around the same time, that Applewhite and Nettles, the leaders of the Heaven's Gate cult, had made a presentation. They had preached at a motel hall in Waldport, Oregon. And after selling all worldly possessions and saying farewell to loved ones, around 20 people vanished from the hotel and from the public eye and joined the group. So about the same time, they had a big...
Yeah, but that's still in the Oregon
area.
area. That's on the opposite side of the states.
Yeah, so
it's
I'm not...
more local.
Yeah, so I'm not sure. I couldn't find out who exactly they were talking about. There's also a sex cult. Maybe we'll have to talk about them later.
And nothing has been like... And a lot of these mutilations, right? They're mutilations, but it looks like precision mutilations,
exactly.
Right? They're not like wild mutilations or
exactly,
or just like rampage.
Exactly, which is why. Okay. So meanwhile, in Rio Arriba, County, New Mexico, June 1976, a trail of suction cup-like impressions were found leading from a mutilated 3-year-old cow. The indentations were in a tripod form, 4 inches in diameter, 28 inches apart, and disappeared 500 feet from the cow. And similar incidents were reported in the area in 1978. 1979, thousands of reported cattle mutilations causing millions of dollars of livestock losses. The FBI finally opened an investigation into a series of cases that had reportedly taken place on New Mexico's Indian lands.
Do you think that it could be any like those animal rights activists?
Not activists. I'm leaning
environmental terrorists.
I'm leaning towards cults or just sick people doing ritualistic things. Or aliens. I haven't decided yet.
Okay, well, keep going.
Okay. Are you intrigued so far?
Yeah.
Okay. More enthusiastic?
Woo!
Yeah. Okay, great.
Tell me more about slaughtered animals.
I'll tell you what. So one of the main pushing factors to get the FBI involved came from the Colorado State science-minded U.S. Senator Harrison Schmitt, who had a PhD in geology from Harvard and had walked on the moon as an Apollo 17 astronaut. So he had a lot of influence and a lot of sway, not necessarily expertise in animal mutilation.
Why are you speaking very slow and deliberate?
Because
and looking at me.
For those listening, they don't know that I've repeated this to you time and time again. They just hear the final cut. They don't know that you have listening issues.
Oh my gosh. Okay, you got an expert.
Okay. So the FBI finally gets involved. So a year later.
Yeah, because the ranchers and the local sheriff did not agree with what the FBI findings were.
Which I will tell you now, Mr. Jumpy Aheady.
Oh my gosh.
So 1 year later, the FBI shut down the case, stating that none of the reported cases has involved what appeared to be mutilation by anything other than common predators. The locals all strongly disagreed.
Okay, so recap. They gathered resources to get the FBI in. The FBI came in, did their investigation, and said, you know what, locals, this is just normal animals. And the FBI walked away.
Yeah.
But then the locals were like, and the sheriff was like, nope.
The locals and sheriffs of all these different counties who have been around these animals their entire lives.
So what do you think would make the government lie like that then?
Aliens.
Well, yeah, they're protecting them.
Probably. A sheriff by the name of George A. Yarnell of South Denver had been investigating the mutilations of 73 cattle in his area, and he reported to the New York Times that, quote, "I've been around cattle all my life, and I can sure tell whether it's been done by a coyote or a sharp instrument." So he was denying that what the FBI said was true. He knew better. He'd been around it his whole life. He could tell the difference. In
any of your research, does it show that they had diseases? I'm wondering if an animal had a disease and then was attacked by another animal, predator, if it would show different type of scarring /
All these animals that have been reported as mutilated had all been autopsied. I think they call it necropsy. Necropsy.
No, I get it. That makes sense.
And they'd all been in perfect health. Another biochemist, Colm Keller, who is deputy administrator of the National Institute for Discovery and Science, said the only thing research showed for sure was that someone is cutting up the animals with sharp instruments, and some chemical substances were added sometimes. One cow found dead in Utah had a hole in its head and the preservative BHT and formaldehyde in it. So BHT is added to food to make it last longer. And it can also be used as medicine to treat genital herpes and AIDS. And if applied topically, it could treat cold sores. So I found different reports that said that BHT can sometimes be added to cattle feed to make it last longer, depending on the climate you're in.
Okay.
But I couldn't find any consistency as to whether if the animal ingested it, if it would show up in their system.
Okay.
So, but the formaldehyde is definitely interesting because that's not something that would typically be found
what does
anywhere.
That do?
The formaldehyde is what the chemical they use to preserve a body once it's died. They pump it full of formaldehyde. Solid through the 70s, early 70s to the late to mid 70s, it was all pretty active within the Midwestern states. Things started to kind of quiet down for a while. And then in Montana in the 2000s, the activity spiked up again. So in 2001, along the Rocky Mountains of Montana, rancher Mark.
So did it ever, so that was in the 70s and then it stopped or slowed down.
Or it was less documented, but it seems to have gone away for a little bit.
And what are the theories?
I'll tell you at the end, yeah. Okay. Let's see, rancher Mark Taliaferro, 25-year veteran rancher, points towards a field where the carcass of a cow was recently found. It's not a natural death. When you see it, I tell you, it makes a believer out of you that something weird is going on. 8 cow killings have been reported in Montana since June 12th, and most recent on August 31st, and they appear to be similar to the ones that occurred in the 1970s. Pondera County, Montana Sheriff's Deputy Dan Campbell, who was raised on an area ranch, says people who dismiss the deaths are not looking hard enough. People who are just like, it's disease, it's predators. They're not paying attention to the.
I wonder what the ranchers are thinking. Are they? Thinking,
they're all saying it's not normal.
Well, I know they're not. It's not normal, but what's their conclusion or thoughts? Like, do they think it's a renegade tribe or like it's next to the Indian lands or some other random thing?
No,
the first sacrifices are.
I'll kind of get into what people think it is.
Okay.
But the only thing that's across the board for certain is it's not predators.
Okay.
And it's also not poisonings. They think that they're like, well, maybe the animals are eating toxic plants.
Yeah, true.
But it's happening too frequently to too many animals in seasons where those poisonous plants aren't around. Mm-hmm. And their toxicology is coming up clean.
Okay.
So it's ruling out poisonings and it's ruling out, some people still think it's predators, but the ranchers don't think it's predators. No vehicle tracks or footprints have been found around the animals. Cuts made to remove the tissue are very clean. There are smooth edges on those cuts. Mr. Campbell said they are not bite marks. Some law enforcement officials and veterinarians who investigated said that they had never seen anything like it. Mm-hmm. We had a bunch of them, said Peter Howard, the Montana Chateau County Justice of the Peace, who was sheriff when the first mutilations hit their peak. I've lived in this county all my life and worked on ranches and have seen plenty of dead animals, but never did I see an animal with its face mask removed like that.
Face mask.
So one animal in the mutilation process had it was like degloved. Its face had been degloved of skin.
That's disgusting.
Yeah. And that's not normal. That's not even normal predator behavior. Yeah. After that, things kind of quieted down again. But they pick up again dramatically, and this time in the state of Oregon. So now we're in our home. Yeah. In 2019, ranch hands found a dead bull on Sylvie's Valley Ranch in Harney County, Oregon. Not weird.
Within what year?
2019.
Oh, recent. Okay.
Yeah. So that's not weird to find a dead animal in your herd. It's not weird. But within 24 hours, they found 4 more. That's weird. Ranchers and ranch hands agreed that this was likely deliberate and premeditated killings. Mm-hmm. The ranch had been owned for 13 years by veterinarian Scott Campbell. He stated that there were no wounds, no signs of a struggle, and the bull's genitals and tongues had been carefully removed. The killing and mutilation of the 4- and 5-year-old heifer bulls in the prime of their productive lives has since spurred a multi-agency investigation in Eastern Oregon.
Well, I feel like if they almost castrate them type of thing, right? Or that.
Yeah.
I feel that that's different than some of these other ones where it could have been just more of a.
I still feel like it's ritualistic.
Yeah.
Because I've been doing research on cults and magic and stuff lately, and so
I heard the balls are the potent for magicalness.
I don't even want to know yet.
You're smiling.
I haven't gotten into that. Well, because I know more than I want to know, but I'm not going to tell you yet because I'm still researching. Detectives have turned up no leads and haven't yet settled on a cause of death. As of today, there's still no cause of death.
I feel like nowadays people could put like those those hunting cameras,
trail cams
out there. Get a little bit more.
The only problem with that is that a lot of these ranches are like 1,200 acres.
Yeah.
500 acres. Like 40,000 acres. They're huge.
Well, true, but that's even better because you just need one camera to overlook the valley. Right? And you can see if anything came up, whether it's a four-wheeler or a spaceship.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. I didn't find anything. All I found is that there's been no evidence or witnesses. They go on to say that how somebody put these bulls on the ground and what would be arguably a fairly close range, and to do it in a way that didn't leave any signs, no trace evidence, no footprints, no struggle marks from the animal, no broken limbs. I have no idea, says Colby Marshall, vice president of the Silvies Valley Ranch. Back then, theories ran the gamut from a government conspiracy and UFOs to natural deaths and scavengers. Today, the circumstances at Silvies Valley Ranch point to humans as the probable culprits because of the precise cuts of the bulls. Silvies Valley Ranch, about 40 minutes north of the county seat of Burns, has put up a $2,500 reward for information on the bull killings that leads to an arrest and conviction, and the Oregon Cattlemen's Association has offered its own $1,000 reward.
So what you're saying is it was done with someone with intelligence.
Possibly.
No, not possibly. It was done specifically.
Are you suggesting it was the astronaut?
Is he intelligent?
Yes.
No, just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
Intelligence.
So someone with some smarts, maybe. The 5 dead bulls were found on July 30th and 31st in wooded areas about 15 miles from US 395, the nearest major road. They were each about a quarter mile apart. Marshall estimated their value at up to $7,000 apiece and said that they would have sired at least 100 calves each over the remainder of their lives. Their productive life was a huge economic opportunity for the ranch, and now that's completely lost, he said. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. So that's where I was going. Which I can see, like, if one rancher hated another rancher, I can see him coming after his money.
Yeah.
But all over the country? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't perceive that as being possible.
Well, I think this one, just because of the location and the frequency that it's stopping, I feel it was definitely targeted for him.
Marshall also heard from several other Oregon ranchers who reported similar killings on their property over the last few decades. So just because it wasn't publicized doesn't mean it didn't happen.
Yeah.
So other ranchers are also confirming that they have lost cattle over the past few decades, including cows that had been found with their udders, vulvas, and tongues removed. Ugh. Staff at Silvies Ranch are now required to ride in pairs and are all encouraged to carry firearms. Outside of Pendleton, Oregon, Terry Anderson believes his cattle have messed up his irrigation spigots again. So this is a rancher. He's like, my cows have messed up my irrigation system. He says that the cows knock him down pretty much every day. Mm-hmm. He has to go out and fix them. He jumps out of his side-by-side vehicle and rights the spigots again and screws on a new spigot or replaces it if they're badly bent. He says, quote, cows just rub up on stuff for the heck of it. They love to scratch. Mm-hmm. So he goes out with the intention of fixing a spigot. And Anderson said that he had just been near the spot the night before, and the next morning his cow was laid over and dead, his udder removed with something like a razor. And he says, and not one drop of blood anywhere. These animals were found bloodless with their tongues and genitals precisely removed. It was widely agreed upon that amongst the rancher community that whatever or whoever the cause was clear it wasn't bears, wolves, cougars, or poisonous plants, nor were the animals shot. This is weird, right?
It is weird.
The current string of cases in Oregon began around February 27th. And this is in 2021 now. This is last year. So in 2021, around February 27th, a string of cases began again when Crook County Sheriff's Officer Deputy Scott Durr was dispatched to suspicious circumstances at the 96th Ranch on West-East Van Lake Road. Owner Ricky Shannon said one of his herd had been discovered dead 2 days earlier with an odd cut down its spine. Shannon, who lives on the ranch with his 2 sons, reported no predators or birds had touched the cow. There were no tracks and no blood surrounding it. The cow's left cheek, tongue, and 3 of its teats had been cut away cleanly. But the eyes, which are usually the first body part to be scavenged after death, were untouched. There were no bullet holes, and a scan of the cow by a metal detector turned up such. The cow was about 200 yards from the road near the edge of a field and some juniper trees. There were no vehicle tracks near the dead animal, no footprints of any kind. The mystery deepened a few days later. On March 4th, Casey Thomas, manager of the GI Ranch on Lister Road in Paulina, reported that one of his herd of around 5,000 appeared to have suffered a strange death. Crook County Detective Javier Sanchez arrived to find a deceased Black Angus cow lying on its side. Hair had been removed near the stomach. All 4 udders were cut off of its left cheek, tongue, and sex organs removed. Between the front legs, an uneven patch of hair was missing, and in the middle was a prick mark.
So I feel like if you did cult stuff, you would take more than just that. Obviously, it looks like a probing.
You think aliens?
Well, I think samples of some sort, right?
Oh, possibly.
It doesn't look like they're doing the full thing.
We'll get there. The next day, Crook County Sergeant Timothy Durheim was dispatched to a report of a wolf kill at the McCormick Ranch on Southeast Bear Creek Road. But when he got there, it was apparent that it was not a wolf attack. Durheim noted several straight incisions on the animal. 1 udder had been removed, and a circular cut was made around the anus and the reproductive organs removed without puncturing the gut. The left cheek, left eye, and tongue had also been removed. Durheim examined the carcass and found a puncture wound between the neck and shoulder. He found no bite marks. There were no apparent animal or human tracks immediately surrounding the carcass and only minimal blood in the area, Durham wrote. I know from personal experience that if an animal is killed or scavenged by predators, there is typically a large bloody mess around the area.
Is there anything that can get injected that causes you not to bleed out?
Like that would coagulate your blood?
Yeah.
There's things, but I don't know what they are. Detective took photos of the dead cows to Prineville veterinarian Dr. Taylor Carlin for her perspective.
And side note, I think anything that would be odd in the blood would be in the toxicology.
It would come out in the toxicology, yeah. Okay. So they took pictures to the Prineville veterinarian Taylor Carlin for her perspective. She agreed the deaths appeared unnatural and, in her opinion, was included in a search warrant request filed in a case to scan for cell phone activity near where the cows were found. So the search that was being taken place by the local law enforcement included cell phone pings.
What does that mean? So
they were trying to see if anybody's cell phone was in that area at the time of the killings. They were trying to catch somebody.
Oh, got it. That makes sense. So they're finally using technology to try to track things down.
So it's like if you can follow someone's cell phone and see like where they've been, and it'll ping off whatever tower they're closest to.
Yeah, it was if anyone was in a certain area, they triangulate.
So they were trying to find, and I don't know, nothing ever came of it. So I guess that they either didn't find anything or whoever they did find had nothing to do with it. So the most recent was March 15th, 2022 in John Day, Oregon.
Oh, that's a good thing though about the cell phone piece.
Yeah. So this happened in Bear Valley. A mutilated bull mysteriously turned up dead at a ranch in Bear Valley last month with body parts removed. According to an incident report by the Oregon State Police, a rancher called a wildlife trooper to report a bull had been killed and mutilated on his ranch with his testicles, scrotum, tongue, and lips precisely removed. Sergeant Eric Timko of the Oregon State Police Wildlife Division said that the injuries to the bull were consistent with the pattern observed in similar cattle mutilation cases. He says, "It's just puzzling. The best word to describe it is bizarre." Now we get into the people trying to explain why these things are happening.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to tell you why it's bullshit.
Okay.
The first thing we have is for explanations for the missing and mutilated mouth, lips, anus, genitalia are explained as
chupacabra.
Not yet. They're saying that the animals have died of dehydration and that small scavengers and burrowing parasites are seeking to enter and consume the body through the weakest areas of the outer dermis. So through the thinnest layers of skin.
Okay.
The missing mutilated eyes and soft organs are explained as carrion feeders, insects such as blowflies, and opportunistic or carrion birds such as vultures, which are known to direct themselves toward an animal's eyes and to enter the body through the openings of the mouth and anus in order to feed on soft internal organs. The absence of blood is explained as blood pooling in the lowest point of the body where it will break down into basic organic components.
Like if it's on its side, it goes to wherever the lowest part is.
So blood that is external to the body or in the area of a wound being consumed by insects or reduced by solar desiccation. So they're saying that if it was exposed to the elements, it would have like dissolved or whatever.
Yeah. Well, that's typically if it was dead prior to, right? Or like time frame prior to.
This is the only thing I 100% agree with. Once the animal has died, and similar to humans, between 4 to 6 hours, lividity will have taken place. I learned this from my criminal justice classes.
You're so smart.
I am. If someone dies, whatever position they're lying in, the blood will pool at the bottom of the body. Mm-hmm. So if you're laying on your right side, the blood will pool to your right side and it'll look like bruising. Mm-hmm. And if your heart's not pumping and if there's no circulation going through your body, if you get cut, the blood's not going to pour out of you because it's not moving anymore.
Yeah, it's
congealed. So if an animal's been dead for a long time and then it gets punctured, it's not going to bleed.
Got it.
So it'll look as if it's bloodless, even though the blood has just pooled and coagulated.
Yeah.
The surgical incisions in this case are considered to be tears in the skin created in the postmortem period when the body bloats and the skin will split, often in linear cuts.
Oh.
Or incisions caused by scavengers or predators, possibly exacerbated by the bloating.
Well, I feel like there'd been other signs of bloating, so wouldn't it be just like, well, just these other areas and then case
just
closed?
These specific areas. Following the predator theory, if a predator or predators had attacked these animals within the same vicinity, which if it was a pack of animals, they would usually typically target one.
Yeah.
At most two, but I don't know why. The animal, at the very least, would have defensive wounds. Mm-hmm. It would have nicks to its legs, backs, claw mark, etc. Not to mention, the surrounding area would look like a battle scene. There'd be footprints, paw prints, hoof marks everywhere.
Yeah.
None of that. There's none of that. And so I said, for it to have been a predator would mean that the predator would have had to be disguised as a ninja and scare the animal to death from 100 feet away using growling through a megaphone. Mm-hmm. Then the predator would have to take a 6-hour nap and wait for the lividity to set in.
Ah.
Then it would just nibbles mm-hmm. on select areas and totally waste everything else. Not even go for the guts, which is like the creme de la creme. Like mm-hmm. the internal organs of an animal is like is the chef's kiss for a predator. So the predator would go nibble, leave, not take the internal organs. Yeah, not take the internal organs. Then while it was leaving, it would grab a tree branch and use it as a broom to clear away its tracks. All while being undetected.
Well, we know that animals are dumb. So therefore, what are some of those other animals that aren't really animals?
Okay, don't jump ahead here.
I'm not jumping ahead. I'm organically talking with what you're talking.
Yeah. So once the once the predators have ninja'd their way out, mm-hmm. they repeat this process to 5 more animals within the same vicinity.
Yeah.
Now, so what's happening to the animal? Once the animal has been scared to death by the ninja predator's megaphone, they would start the decomposition process. Mm-hmm. Like I said, lividity completes within 6 hours.
Okay.
And the bloating of the bodily gases starts to occur, which it can stretch and tear the skin. So that's possible.
No, that's an interesting thing I never thought.
However, when they're comparing the natural tears of bloat to a scalpel, they're not similar. Mm-hmm. The scalpel incisions are very clean. A bloat tear is very jagged, and it'll kind of go with the curve of the body versus a straight linear line.
Makes sense.
Debunked. Then, unfortunately, with all dead animals...
Do we need to put this on like Mythbusters?
Maybe. Yeah. So, and unfortunately, blowflies and maggots are drawn to a rotting carcass and will begin to devour the affected areas.
But they don't devour 100%, right? 'Cause
No.
You're saying they're removed.
Yeah, exactly.
Not just partially.
So in truth, like maggots and flies, when they are working on an area, it does look very clean because they're cleaning out all the rot. So they can make a jagged incision appear smooth, but not in terms of a wolf bite looking like a perfectly smooth circular incision.
Yeah.
So they're saying
we
that
don't think it's predators.
unless the animal was like gummed to death, maggots and blowflies would not make an incision appear to be smooth.
Okay.
And blowflies and maggots usually occur. So flies typically start work within hours after death, and maggots emerge between 7 and 20 hours. And they can stay upon the carcass for weeks, which is contradictory to how some of these animals were found. They were found with no predation and no signs of insect.
Well, because I don't know if you talked about it. How many days from the time of death are they projecting that a lot of these cattle are found?
Usually it's within a day or two.
Okay.
Day or two at the most. The one with, he thought the spigot, it was a few hours because he went out that night, saw the cow.
Yeah, he had his
checked
routine.
the spigot, and in the morning the cow was dead. So that's like, that doesn't equate for anything that they're saying what some people are theorizing it is.
Okay.
Yeah, and as I said, previously reported deceased animals were shown with no indication of predator activity, and perhaps strangest of all, the scavenging animals, including flies and larvae, appeared to have hardly touched the carcass, regardless of the length of time that they were deceased. It was also hypothesized that a scalpel-like incision and missing soft tissue could be attributed to carrion birds or birds that scavenge dead carcasses. So carrion birds are like your vultures, your hawks, anything that will eat off of a dead carcass.
Yeah. Their beaks are like scissors.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know about the Midwestern states, but because we live in Oregon and we've had a spike in these mutilations here recently, I researched, and here in the Pacific Northwest, there's 30 different species of raptor. I couldn't see any of them doing this. They're small. Most of them are very, very small. The
smaller the beak, the more precise the incision.
No, and they wouldn't. They would tear. Okay.
What? Playing devil advocate here.
If it wasn't a predator that took down the bull, their next thing, it was a carrion bird. Okay, so the carrion bird, takes the bull down itself and then barely eats on it. And the biggest bird I came across was the Andean condor, which can actually weigh up 33 pounds. And it has almost a 10-foot wingspan. So it's a huge bird. But it's not going to take down a 2,000-pound bull. It's not. Don't give me them. It's not going to happen. Okay. The bull will be like, fuck off. Right? Okay.
And keep in mind, too, something else could happen which naturally attracted the birds.
Okay,
which
so then
also
what?
did the...
Yeah. So then, okay. And then that goes to... So nowhere did I find in any of these birds that I found, most of them were like owls or like small, like little chicken type birds. Very small. None that would like take down or cause very much damage to a bull. And then all the incisions that I found that they would make would involve tearing, ripping, clawing, or leaving behind strings of rotten flesh.
I'm just thinking like an ant can carry what, like 100 times its weight?
A coconut. If carried by the husk.
I wonder, even if those birds are small, what's the pound per inch of this beak?
I don't know.
Yeah, just saying it's a combination of things.
Not likely. So it's not likely.
I just like the vision.
Yeah. The only animal that I found that could make precision-like cuts comes from the Australian water rats that can cut cane toads open with surgical precision to feast on their hearts. And then I wrote, God damn it, Australia.
Yet another reason why I don't want to live or visit Australia.
I am in the firm mindset that if I was walking down a street and on the left side there was an Australian and on the right side there was a ninja wielding machetes or katanas, I'd go that way. I'd be more afraid of the Australian.
Hey, just because Australia has weird animals doesn't mean the people are bad.
They're tough. No, they have to be tough. They are scary.
Okay, I get what you're saying.
I'm intimidated. They've lived through it.
Oh, okay. I get what you're saying now.
I'd be like, dang, I have more chance of surviving with the ninja than I do with the Australian.
Joe, just a public announcement. In case you had childhood trauma or you survived rough hardships, I would not bypass you on the street because you know what? Everyone's an individual.
We're all a little bit Australian.
Yes. Some more than others. But I would not walk on the other side of the street just because you're tough.
I'd be scared. You wouldn't be scared?
No, because they went through stuff. Why are they going to attack me? They look like
I don't know.
That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
Is don't.
Fair point.
We still love you, Australia.
Yeah.
Just
okay.
Your country's weird. Like country in terms of landscaping.
Yeah. Okay, so if it was humans, okay, so predators. Do we think it's predators? No, I don't think it's predators. And these are, and I said it before, they're all healthy. There's no sign of toxicity in their system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not predator. If it was humans, that means that they would have to take down a 2,000-pound bull. And that's not an easy feat. And there were no signs of struggle.
But you can cow tip. That's like a big thing. What if the cow was asleep and you cow tipped it over? That's like a common pastime. So you don't even need to pacify. You just
but then it. Okay, so then the bulls are lying on their sides as if they had just fallen over dead, which is synonymous with cow tipping.
Yep, and it's hard for them to get up.
Yeah, but it's also hypothesized that maybe some kind of a toxic dart might have killed the bull from a distance, but there's no proof of that, and it's not clear if a dart would leave any detectable imprint.
Cow tipping.
Some law enforcement communities opined that the animals were being mutilated by people in strange quasi-religious rituals, which is kind of where I'm leaning. In 1980, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police blamed the mutilations on an unidentified cult. The Department of Criminal Investigations in Iowa, meanwhile, asserted that the mutilations were being conducted by Satanists. Which I feel like we need to do a Church of Satan episode because they get really bad rap. They're not so bad.
Probably because the name of the title.
Probably because the title, yeah.
But yeah, most Satanists don't do animal sacrifices.
Yeah. So I hypothesized that if it was a human, they would have to be disguised as a ninja, get within range of a 2,000-pound bull, undetected, and either dart it with a blowgun or knock it unconscious with a single chop to the neck. Then
cow push.
They would have to wait 6 hours for lividity to set in. Then they'd have to remove the items they needed for the nefarious purposes, then harness their adrenaline so they could hover off the ground while using a tree branch as a broom to clear their tracks. And then they would either flow or flight away. Or teleport, I haven't decided. All while being undetected.
So, that to you rules out humans. So, if it's not humans, and we know by all evidence that it was done by intelligence beings, kind of narrows down the suspects.
Because there have been no tracks near the scenes of the killings, one local lawman believes the perpetrators used a helicopter to swoop down at night on an unsuspecting herd, do their dirty work, then make their getaway by air, like Mission Impossible.
Oh, and then they would just insert the cow later.
No. They would lower, fuck with the cow, leave.
Oh.
They would hover in a helicopter.
Mission Impossible down.
Get a skilled doctor harnessed. Deploy them 200 feet or more to a bull that they would then karate chop. Collect what they wanted and then be reeled back in by said helicopter.
And
taken away.
Here's a theory for you. Or they lure a cow out of the...
away from the rest of the herd. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It gets conducted by humans or whoever. And then it gets inserted by helicopter, like you just mentioned, onto the ground. Because there's no evidence because it wasn't done.
So they moved sites. But
they dropped the body.
Don't you think, though, that there would be blood or other things at the site where it happened?
No, because as you said, they can take the live cow and then do the 6 hours and do the ninja, all that fun stuff in a warehouse somewhere.
Oh.
And then reinsert it. to make it
even the
seem,
cow that was just a few hours. It was from night to morning.
Well, I'm not saying every case, but you listed cases. Hundreds of cases.
Yeah.
So I'm just proposing I can do the same thing with human by luring the cow out, right? Or just getting it off the property and then doing my thing and then dropping it back into its home. Right. Case solved. You're welcome.
You, sir, get a raise.
Now, the bigger question is, why would someone do it?
Exactly. All right. So another theory is that it's a government experiment.
That's what I was about to say. Government helicopters.
Reports within the affected ranching communities indicated that the mutilations regularly coincided with the sighting of a mysterious, unmarked helicopter. Some
My
ranchers
theory is working out pretty nicely.
Some ranchers who suffered the worst losses believed the federal government had performed the mutilations for an assortment of reasons, including the testing of biological weaponry. That kind of goes with the blobs of Oakville.
Well, most of those, they typically work it out with ranchers and they get a set number with them.
I feel like they wouldn't have to sneak them. They could buy them.
Yep. Same thing where they use cows, maybe not cows, but like goats and other animals for, and pigs for
certain testing.
Not testing, but also like medical practice.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to shoot this goat's in the lungs.
I feel like, okay, I have to say this. I don't support practice on animals. I don't think it's right.
Yeah, but the military does that.
I know, but it happens. So we're talking about it, but it's not that we're for it. I just throwing that out there. Some people believe that it's North Vietnamese army conducting experiments.
No, come on. What is that?
All right, babe. Here we go. Aliens is the next theory we get to. So around the same time as Snippy the horse from 1967, from around the time of that bizarre mutilation, local Superior Court Judge Charles Bennett witnessed 3 orange rings in the sky, flying in a triangular formation at incredible speeds. 2 sheriff deputies, meanwhile, reported being followed around by a floating orange globe.
Okay.
So, same time. Someone else says that a lot of people are leaning towards aliens when it comes to livestock mutilation, even going on so far as to say, and this is a quote, "Look for depressions under the carcasses," because they said that the alien ships will kind of beam the cow up and do whatever they are going to do with it, then just drop it from great heights.
Similar to a helicopter being inserted. Which matches.
Someone else told authorities that they should run a Geiger counter around the animal and that they would be guaranteed to be there'd be trace radiation there.
Maybe.
Sheriff Deputy Dan Jenkins said he's gotten a few suggestions that Sasquatch might be responsible.
No. Next.
All right, and then
so which one do you conclude?
This is the last one.
Okay.
Skinwalkers.
Okay.
Or fleshwalkers is another term I've heard that skinwalkers is a trigger for some people, especially the Native American community, because it's so real.
Yeah, Skinwalker Ranch.
Yeah. Others have blamed unidentified earthbound creatures at Skinwalker Ranch, a property in northeastern Utah whose numerous paranormal activities were the subject of the book Hunt for the Skinwalker. Science confronts the unexplained at a remote ranch in Utah. Rancher Terry Sherman lost several heads of cattle to mutilation after buying the 512-acre property in 1996. Those mutilations coincided with several strange encounters. In one, Sherman saw a wolf-like creature 3 times the size of a normal wolf that was impervious to rifle fire. In another...
or bad aim.
In another, a researcher saw an odd humanoid creature with piercing yellow eyes spying on him from a tree. Other cases have happened since on the property. That is it summed up in a nutshell.
So what do you think? You gave scenarios of how things will happen. I actually proposed something that sounds the more legit. The helicopter
You've been
insertion.
working in your helicopter insertion?
No, because that explains everything. As you know, the cows were removed. Things were done outside and then they were reinserted. Now, same thing with the aliens. Except,
so who and why?
Well, who be government? Why? To spread disinformation about aliens. There are some UFO theorists who were big UFO supporters, and then they actually realize that, guess what? In reality, most of this UFO stuff is actually the government want you to think they're UFOs. And so now some of them don't even believe there's UFOs. It's just a big government conspiracy to put people in different directions. The why behind that, who knows?
Yeah.
But there's that thing. But regardless, if you had to pick humans to do it, that would be how a human could do it, which is lure it, do whatever outside, and then insert it by a helicopter, which will also account for some of the drops and the input and so on.
So,
and the why is for you to decide.
Yeah. So what do I think? I think human.
Okay.
I don't think alien.
Mythical creature? Sasquatch? Chupacabra?
I don't think so. I think human, and I'm leaning towards ritualistic.
Black market, you think?
I'm not thinking black market. I'm thinking, okay, so in all the research I've done so far, the sex organs, tongue, it's all things that are used in ritual to commune with otherworldly beings and deities and entities.
Do you think these rituals or these cultists are well funded and or have a lot of money?
Yes.
So, do you think they would have their
helicopters?
Own helicopters?
Yes.
And because we know, based off of other cults and so on, and, again, doing one of my research, we were talking about someone who was 32 years in the Illuminati and so on. And they are very specific, meaning when they do their, whether it's animal sacrifices or animal blood rituals and so on, they have it down to a T. And it could be in the middle of the woods and you'll have zero trace of anything. And so with someone who has a system down so well and or the funding, whether it's helicopters or whichever, they can easily, in my opinion, lure a cow, do what they need to do and return it and go from there. Yeah. I think 100% they can do it.
So I'm leaning towards secret society or an occult. And it's typically something of like...
Well, you haven't even hit. Why do you think aliens would want it?
I never said I thought it was aliens.
Of course not. So let's talk about that, because some of, there may be people who think that it was aliens.
Well,
so why do you think aliens?
A lot of people are leaning towards aliens.
Why are they leaning towards it?
It's super suspicious. I think that the lack of trace evidence.
Why would the aliens need it, though?
I don't know. That's the thing. The why, I don't know.
Well, I'm with your eyes. It's not the why.
Go. Show me you're crazy.
Well, I mean, you got to think of something, you don't know why. So a couple of things, anytime you can get reproductive things from our world, right, it could apply to other things. So whether it's humans or animals, right, they can. So
crossbreeding or.
Well, crossbreeding or just some type of knowledge, right, that they gain. And I think, you could do crossbreeding or some other random thing because.
So do the aliens need that many samples? Thousands of samples.
I would assume so. Why wouldn't you?
I'm just thinking if you're an intellectual.
Samples go bad, right? You can't just have one sample.
Not if you store them properly.
Well, I know, but
if you're the most intellectual being in the world and you're not Ubering you around. Plus, you've already given them 5 samples.
That's for credit.
I don't know. Or I feel like they'd be able to do it without killing them. I feel like there'd be other ways to get what they wanted.
I wonder, how, like they say, certain animals are closest
pigs
to,
are most closely
humans, right?
related to human. Or our DNA is or genetic makeup is the most similar, or something like that.
Potential. Let's say these extraterrestrials, their DNA is maybe closer to a cow compared to a human or a pig.
Do you know how excited I would be if a cow came out of the sky and tried to communicate with me through song?
Wow. No, but I'm just trying to think of possibilities.
I don't even want to go to bed tonight. I'm just going to watch the skies.
You're welcome. No, but that's some. I mean,
that's interesting.
Or if you look at the human piece, where it could be black market, because in other parts of the world, did you I've seen some of the TikTok videos or whichever where some of these cow parts, uteruses and all this, all that fun stuff.
They're like delicacies.
They're delicacies.
But you can go. Okay, if I wanted a bag of chicken hearts, chicken livers.
Yeah, I guess you don't have to go to America.
You can go to a butcher shop and be like, I would like 5 cow livers. And they'll be like, come back next week and I got you.
You know, that's a great point. So it may not be the international black trade. I wonder if in our markets, right, where we don't do some things that other international markets do, if I did go to a butcher and I'm like, I would like the bulls or the...
You can get whatever you want. Just ask for it.
I don't know.
Yes. Yes.
That seems odd that you can prep.
Have you ever heard of, what are they called? Rocky Mountain oysters? Bull testicles. Fried bull testicles.
All right. Well, that's just...
Maybe it's Rocky Mountain meatballs. I thought it was oysters. I don't even want to think.
But what I'm getting at though is if those type of parts are not as common and if there's any restrictions on those, because if there's no legal restrictions, then I think it's less likely any type of black market stuff. But if there are restrictions,
I can check like FDA rules and guidelines, but I can't.
But you know what I'm saying, like, right? If there are restrictions, then that may cause a demand for a black market or this under thing. That's the only thing. I don't have the data. I'm just talking.
Yeah.
So that's it.
From the experience I have, I would say that it would not be difficult to get. I kind of feel like Slumdog Millionaire a little bit. Like I have the answers to a lot of things because I've experienced them firsthand. Mm-hmm. So I was at a cookout and they were cooking up brain cow and tongue because it was just culturally.
Where did you go?
It was in Southern California.
Okay, what's that?
So it's just culturally
different than
common, and yeah. And then I volunteered at the zoo. I've seen a vulture eat. Mm-hmm. It's not clean.
Yeah.
You know, or I mean a conure. Excuse me. I've seen a conure eat, and it's not clean. And so when they're saying it could be like a carrion bird, I'm like, that's bullcrap, because if you've ever seen a carrion bird eat, it's not clean. Mm-hmm. And the intestines are always the number one thing that is gone for. So for that to be totally intact, it's so anyway.
Yeah, no, I get
I can go on all day and day, all day and night. That it's not.
Think it's.
I think it's human. I was pissed when I saw that Sasquatch was thrown in there.
Why?
My man has better manners.
Yeah.
Okay, so in a quick search, we found out that you can buy pretty much any kind of organ meat you would like.
Interesting part: if you're hunting it, you cannot sell the parts. It's against local wildlife and game stuff.
You could probably trade it and barter it.
Well, yeah, I guess you could trade it. They just don't want you to open market. You
can't open market sell the food that you've hunted and gathered.
Yeah, because that would be one of the things, right? Is just a black market.
So that's it's disturbing. It's fascinating. It's unsolved. They're all mysterious. Everybody has different thoughts and feelings. The vast majority think it's aliens.
So if you were a rancher, how would you prevent that from happening? I would just
I'd put tinfoil hats on all my cows.
Why? I would just put cameras, see what's going on.
Yeah, I guess cameras at I'd even have 24-hour ranchers on hand.
Yeah,
and have them doing rounds.
Yeah, listen for helicopters. I think the helicopters is a big thing.
That's an interesting aspect. Yeah, for sure.
Whether it's cultists, military, or UFOs.
Yeah. So what's today's takeaway?
Being a cattle rancher is hard. Tough life.
It is. It's rough.
Yeah. But it doesn't seem consistent. That's the only thing that's thrown me off, is that it just doesn't seem consistent, right? You had a big swing and
it kind of ebbs and flows.
Yeah. Or it's just not large scale at this point.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So don't blame things on Sasquatch. Number 1.
No.
Number 2, it's not predators.
It's definitely not predators. I 100% agree.
I don't think it's predators.
FBI, what are you doing?
What are you doing?
Go play with these crayons.
Failed.
Oh, don't be mean.
I
did just say go play with these box of crayons.
Yeah.
And don't eat them.
Go back to your mom's basement. I don't know.
I would not put that as a stereotypical FBI agent.
I wouldn't either. I actually really respect the FBI.
Spoiler
Anyway.
alert, I did apply to the FBI back in the day.
And here we are.
No, they had a hiring freeze. I was going to be accepted.
They did. I know. You were very, very close. All right. So going out, we have a Gmail account now. So you can email us, stopthinkingwithyourbutt@gmail.com. What? All spelled out. No spaces. And for if you have any complaints or negative comments, there is no email address. It doesn't exist.
No, I'll deal with all those.
No, we'll see. Yeah, but we would love to hear. We'd love to hear feedback. We'd love to hear suggestions for future episodes. If you have any good suggestions, we have a huge long list, but depending on what you want, it might jump to the top of the list.
Yeah. So, well, thank you for your time.
Yeah, and you can also follow us on Instagram at Stop Thinking with Your Butt.
Yeah.
We got a lot going on. All right, everybody, take care.
Whoop, whoop.
Whoop, whoop. Out.
Can you imagine being the sheriff and someone thinking that you're doing such a horrible job? An astronaut is saying that he could do a better job than you.
He didn't say he was doing a better job. He was just saying, hey, FBI.
I can gather more people.
I'm influential in this community and we need you.
Yeah, I guess I should say not he's going to be doing it. But you know what I'm saying? Like you have a crowdsourcing to try to get. No, but that goes back to the same point. Sheriff's doing a crappy job.
No, he's not.
He just concluded something that everyone was against. He was like, oh, it's just animals. And they're like, no, it's not animals. Look at this. And then the astronaut's like, it's not that, Sheriff. I'm going to get more people to investigate.
No, not the sheriff. The astronaut is like, FBI, you guys need to step up. This is going down. And the FBI is like, we're closing the case because it's just animals. And everybody else is like, no, it's not.
Oh, I thought you said the sheriff was closing the case.
No, the FBI closed the case.
Okay.
Pay attention.
Stop yelling at me. Man.
Gosh, I got so much editing to do right there.
Well, you're saying sheriff.
I didn't say sheriff. I said that Sheriff George Yarnell of South Denver had been investigating the mutilation of 73 cattle. And he said, I've been around cattle all my life, and I can sure tell whether it's been done by a coyote or a sharp instrument. He was not agreeing with the FBI's findings.
My bad. Listening's not my strong point.
I know.